Hey, and welcome to this week's Inbound Debate. We're doing another whiteboard special, and this week we are talking about the behemoth of social networks. Do we think Facebook has another 10 years in it? Now, I'm going to introduce my first speaker, Vicky, who is arguing the case that Facebook is going to die in the next 10 years.
So today's question is asking whether or not we think Facebook has another 10 years. You probably know that they just celebrated their 10-year anniversary, and we're going to be discussing today whether we think they'll get to 20. In short, I don't think they will, and there's 3 reasons why, and I'm going to take you through them today. The first one, Facebook's just not cool. It's just not original anymore. A recent survey found that 11 million teenagers had migrated away from Facebook since 2011. They said that they were embarrassed to even be associated with Facebook. Their parents used to be worried about kids joining up and getting a Facebook account, and now it's the other way around. Kids are mortified that their parents are sending them friend requests or sharing pictures of lolcats that are just not funny. Teenagers are one of the biggest influencer groups, and as we know, they like to rebel. They like to go against the mainstream. Facebook's just a little bit too mainstream now. They're moving to apps like WhatsApp, Instagram, Snapchat, and in an attempt to try and claw some of the teenagers back, Facebook have a bit of a buy or copy mentality. So they recently tried to buy Snapchat for $3 billion. It was rejected, so they decided to create their own version of it. Whatever happened to being original? Point number 2, they're now a bit too diverse and diluted. So most of us will still admit that the main reason that we go onto Facebook is to check in with our family and friends and keep up to date with news around what they're doing. But Facebook are pushing news stories to us, they're pushing adverts to us, they're telling us to like pages, to like posts. They're just moving so far away from what we as a user want to be doing on Facebook. The other question you have to ask is, have they diversified so much that their senior staff members are now focusing more on their own projects? So think of Sheryl Sandberg and her Lean In book and her Lean In initiative. Is it a sign that perhaps she's jumping ship, moving elsewhere? Maybe, we'll see. Number 3, there's just no trust when it comes to Facebook anymore. It seems that every week they're in the news for some privacy issue or some legal battle. And we're just looking for a platform that we can trust, that's younger, edgier, cooler. And Facebook, you know, they're being sued at the moment for not disclosing all the information about their company's health when they went to their IPO. Can we trust in a company like that? Probably not. And I'll just finish by saying there was a paper released recently which predicted that 80% of Facebook user base would be lost by 2017. That's a massive, massive drop. And they compared it to the epidemic curve. So Facebook has spread, it's been like an infectious disease, but today I'm saying that actually we've all become immune to it.
Next up, we have Nick, who is arguing the point that Facebook will be around in the next 10 years.
Okay, so there's been loads of speculation and rumours that Facebook is dead and buried and that 11 million teenagers are leaving the platform to go to Snapchat and Twitter and various others. Well, I don't think any of that actually matters to Facebook, so I'm going to argue that actually Facebook does have way more than 10 years going forward. Now, when you look at the data, of all people that use social media, 94% of them use Facebook. So all these rumors are kind of inevitable. You're going to have to get more uncool if you have 94% of the market already. So I don't think that actually matters. What's happening is there's an evolution where Facebook came in, they created this platform, everyone used it, and now other companies are now creating similar platforms, but not the same, and other people are actually spreading their time about with which platform they use. So this kind of spread is just a bit of an evolution. I don't think it's necessarily anything to worry about. And I mean, it's true though that Facebook is uncool and people are leaving it because of that. But I think where Facebook's got the advantage is that they've got huge amounts of cash where they can buy companies like Instagram for $1 billion, or they can buy other platforms that are cool when Facebook might not actually be cool right now. So I don't think coolness really matters to Facebook. I don't think that's an issue for them. They'll just buy companies that are cool. So Instagram's an example, but just last year they bought 8 new companies, ranging from sort of speech translation through to sports apps. They're doing all sorts of things behind the scenes, and everyone's kind of worried that everyone's moving away from Facebook, when actually you're moving to a friend of Facebook or whatever, and they're going to take the same data they already had. So the other thing that Mark Zuckerberg's also got going on is this project called Internet.org. It's the not-for-profit organisation that's going to be pushing the internet out to 2/3 of the country that currently don't use the internet. Great cause, but also you can bet that Mark's version of the internet is going to have Facebook attached to it. So that's another huge chunk of the internet that they can grab and then put onto their platform, and then finally come onto the big data, which is where they make all their revenue. And it doesn't just come from big data on Facebook, it can come from big data on Instagram, any other platforms that they're going to be using and acquiring in the next 10 years. They're going to get all this information and be able to target advertisements really well to all sorts of users, and marketers are just going to absolutely lap it up. And Facebook will have a huge barrier to entry with this data. They're going to have huge numbers that no one else could even dream of, and that's where their revenue comes from. It's from this big data, and it's only going to get bigger. So I think, privacy issues or not, Facebook has definitely got another 10 years.
Well, thank you very much, guys. I thought both arguments for and against were really good. A couple of points I want to touch on before we name the winner. With regards to privacy, which I think you both mentioned, Mark Zuckerberg always has a tendency to kind of over-push the privacy barrier and then kind of come back a little bit to the point where he wants it, which it might be seen as almost a tactical move. And secondly, with the 11 million people dropping off, and I think the study which showed 80% of people or 70% of people would be gone by 2017, that was based off a MySpace model, which I feel is a little bit biased. So this week's winner of the Inbound Debate is Nick. So congratulations.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
And thank you both, guys. As always, this has been the Inbound Debate, and we'll see you next week.